Hey, Warriors, welcome back. Episode 9. Abby and I are so excited for you all to hear the amazing conversation we had with our second guest, Reyna Texler.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was a great one. And before Abby lets us know a little bit about what you can expect to hear in our interview with her, let me tell you a little bit about who Reyna is. Reyna Texler is a native New Yorker with over 20 years of experience teaching elementary school children in New York. Reyna is a certified mindfulness coach and yoga instructor for children and founder of Ruby Sneakers Consulting, where she facilitates interactive workshops for families and educators locally and nationally. She is also a fur mom, wife, daughter, sea kayak guide, and cookie lover. So, Abby, tell us a little bit about our chat with Reyna.
Yeah, this chat was super fun. Reyna talks a bit about her anxiety story. And what was really interesting to me is that she never really lived an anxious life, right?
Yeah, that was a wild revelation.
Like she just noticed feelings of anxiety in this last year. And because she's an educator and she had to navigate the world of teaching during a pandemic, she noticed anxiety presenting itself in her life. And then, Reyna really shares with us how, even though she's been a mindfulness teacher and teaching children social emotional learning for years, all her tools, all those things that she was teaching kids to practice, weren't even supporting her. And so she learned new ways of coping and new ways of connecting with other people. And her community is what became her source of support. So it was a really fascinating journey to hear. One, the experience that not everyone lives with chronic anxiety, but two, that sometimes our practices have to change. And so she really shares how her practices changed over this last year to support her well-being.
Yeah, it was such a fun conversation and just filled with so many juicy nuggets that we know all of you warriors out there will be able to listen to and hopefully gain a lot from and learn from the amazing Reyna. So here she is, everyone. Enjoy. All right, everyone, we are back with our amazing second guest, Miss Reyna Texler. Welcome, Reyna.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We are so excited. A little yay from Abby, girl. We're so excited that you agreed to be on the pod with us. And, we had been chatting leading up to this conversation a little bit about your anxiety journey. And so that's where we're going to start. Just tell us a little bit about your anxiety story.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you both for having me here. I've been watching you guys grow over the years, and it's just been so exciting to see everything happen. So, sending lots of, as Abby would say, sparkle and shine out there to both of you.
We feel
Twinkle.
them. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And so, my anxiety story, I actually never thought that I had anxiety before. Actually, I'll be honest with you. One time I can really remember having anxiety, and it was right before I got married. And every time someone would bring up the wedding, I would get hives like from my legs all the way up to my face.
Oh,
And
no.
yeah, I don't know what it was about it, but definitely not my husband. But there
I was
was
going to say maybe it was the lifelong commitment
I
thing
don't
or.
know. No, I've known him since I'm 16 years old. We've been together for a while,
Oh,
but
same. I didn't know
oh,
that about you. That's so
yeah,
cool. High school
yeah.
sweetheart. Love it.
So, being an educator, let's see now, it's like 25 years. This is my 25th year in education. And with all that we were going to be experiencing coming back after the pandemic, it's definitely something that I noticed that was starting to come up for me and bubble up. I guess you could say that there were lots of unknowns. What was going to happen with our students? How were we going to make sure that everybody stayed as safe as possible? How are we going to mitigate all of the safety aspects to make everyone feel comfortable in the building and keep safety at our number one priority, in addition to teaching the children, how we were going to be teaching the children, what it was going to be looking like, how we were going to manage their social emotional needs. So there was just like a lot that was unknown. And I guess you could say, like in my body, I just started having like a heavy chest.
Mm-hmm.
And then like my thoughts would be continuously racing and I wouldn't be able to stop them. And I actually would kind of like go into the freeze where I would shut down and just not want to like get up and do some of my favorite things that I used to do. And so I would say that, that's really what triggered what I was able to really remember, other than the wedding and the hives, being, anxiety that was manifesting in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot in that, which is one, fascinating that you never really thought you had anxiety before. Like, what kind of life is that? Right? Like,
No clue. When Reyna told me that in our chat, I was like, wait, what? Baffling.
how do you live?
Or it is possible that, over the past couple of years, I have been developing my skills as a social emotional learning teacher and my mindfulness practices, that I never really was able to really be that in tune with my body, that I would be able to recognize it as anxiety. Yeah. So you kind of have both things working at the same time.
And so that's the other part I was going to ask is, if you either one weren't like that familiar with experiencing much anxiety, which like amazing, or two, you had like low grade anxiety, but you just didn't know it because you didn't know necessarily like the sensations and labeling the emotions. Like during this past year, how did you realize you were experiencing anxiety?
I think when it started to impact the fact that I wasn't able to really continue with some of my normal daily life skills, like even being able to do some of my work and my thinking, like what would normally take me 15 minutes was now taking me forever, and I would have to walk away from it. Or where I was sometimes just like having a lot of questions and having to talk things through, I wasn't even wanting to talk about it. I was just shutting down. So, and just in my body, I just knew that the heavy chest, that the racing thoughts, that, I'll be honest with you, the tears dripped every once in a while too. And it's just, those are those things that just weren't, I hate to use the word normal because who's really normal, right? But just to say that they weren't present before. And I knew that my go-to strategies were just not working. And it's like, the shoemaker who doesn't have the shoes. Like, I'm not supposed to be the one who has all of these strategies because this is what I teach, but yet those strategies are just not working for me. And I just kept thinking to myself, holy moly, if I'm having trouble right now, what is everybody else feeling right now? And how is everybody else managing, these waves that we're going through of highs and lows and uncertainty?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, sending you a mad amount of twinkles and sparkle and shine, because I can't even, it was hard for everyone this year for so many reasons, but you educators, oof, you were handed such a raw deal this year. You had mentioned in our call, that, and you just said a little bit on it now, about how a lot of your usual strategies and coping mechanisms in your mindfulness practice and as an SEL professional were helping you to notice what was going on, but really you were still struggling to manage. Managing was still a challenge. And you spoke a little bit about how it's been manifesting, or how it had manifested in your mind and body and behaviors. I'm curious, like, was there a time where, kind of like what Abby was just asking you, where it was like, I think this is related to anxiety specifically, right? Like this, the weighing in the chest thing, right? The feeling of being heavy, or, all of those obsessive or ruminating kind of thoughts. Was there like an aha moment in your teaching? When did it happen? Or was it more just like that steady build?
I think it was a steady build, to be honest with you. And I think that, definitely being able to understand the definition of anxiety and, like fear of the uncertainty, and that that was the connection that I was having, because a lot of the things that I was saying were about like, what if, how do we know if this is going to happen? That's what really connected it with me, for me. But there comes a point, and it's almost like I think it's very different for everybody. But for me, it just got to the point where I was able to say and see for myself, Reyna, this is not you. This is not like you. And, we really need to have some positive self-talk here and say, what are we going to do to help you? You're going to get through this, and we need to find something that's going to support you. Because the things that were working before weren't. So, I was really into like exercise. That wasn't happening anymore. I noticed that, my food choices were definitely becoming a lot more unhealthy. I mean, like, listen, Margot, I'm with you on a good cookie,
Cookie shirt on right now.
And so, like, it just, everybody has their own point, where they're able to truly notice it. When your mind gets hijacked, that amygdala hijack that's happening, sometimes you're not able to really see it in the moment. And sometimes you also need some good friends who are also going to say to you, like Abby has actually said to me before, hey, Reyna, I'm concerned about you. Like, let's take a look at the things that you're saying right now, and let's kind of like explore that for a minute. And I have to tell you that the one thing, not the one thing, but the thing that really came as my like anchor throughout all of this was community, and like having people that I could speak to as like thought partners about what was happening in work, or like self-care accountability people, and just to like validate my feelings also. Like, that to me was really the key.
Yeah.
So I want to hammer down about the thought partners, because I loved this part of our chat when we were talking ahead of recording the podcast. And so can you just explain like a little bit about, I just think this pairing of words is brilliant. Like, what exactly is a thought partner?
So I can't take any credit for that language. I first learned the term thought partner in a course that I'm currently taking called Transformative Educational Leadership. And CASEL, which is the main organization for social emotional learning, they also use the term thought partners. And thought partners are people that you can really discuss like problems of practice with.
Mm.
It could be someone that is, helping you with a problem of practice that's personal. It could be somebody who's helping you with a problem of practice that's happening in your career life. And, they really, it's kind of like coaching in the sense where you're asking each other open, honest questions. So that way people can feel empowered to sort of find the answers from within, rather than telling you what either you want to hear or somebody else's opinion on what it is. But yeah, I am so grateful for the people that have come really closely into my life over the last year, because without them, man, it really would have been even more challenging than it was.
Yeah. I just want to reflect something that I'm like hearing. And you have had a, long mindfulness practice, and you had a practice of physical movement, or exercise. You've been an SEL teacher, social emotional learning teacher, for years, and none of your tools in your toolbox worked. And what did work and helped you was community and other people. And I think that sometimes when we're feeling anxious and when we're feeling all that discomfort, the last thing we think to do is to reach out to others. But yet sometimes that's the thing that actually helps in those moments. Doesn't matter, all our other tools don't work, right? It's like, oh, just connecting to someone else, co-regulating with them, being able to talk it out, being able to really get clear on what's going on with us. So I just think that's a beautiful reflection on you didn't give up and you found something that worked for you.
Yeah, and if you think about it also, you know, Abby, I'm listening to you say that. And when we talk about children, you know, we have to connect before we make any corrections on any behaviors that we're having and how we're feeling also, you know. So it just, thank you for that, because it just all makes sense why that was something that I was really finding helpful and kind of searching for at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's so true. And that is the one thing that working with my kids this year is really trying to build a sense of belonging and community with the kids, and really having them talk about, you know, how they are feeling, and not just like having them try to fix the other people, because it's not about fixing, but really just saying like, hey, I'm here with you. Is there anything I can do to support you right now?
Yeah.
And if those kids can walk away with that, and I just feel like, you know, that's amazing. So, you know, thank you for reflecting back something that I really wasn't even seeing that I was doing for myself.
Yeah. And I just think I love the idea too of how easy it is to forget, the way Abby just framed it, that we always feel the need typically, or maybe I shouldn't say typically, to figure this out myself. I better deal with my pain myself. I better cope with my anxiety by myself, especially when you work in the field, right? It's like, why aren't my tools working? Well, I guess I'm not doing them right. And then you start judging yourself too, and it can be a complete spiral. And so I'm impressed that you were able to recognize in yourself, I need something different. And then you sought that out, right? You were able to say, not only do I need something different, but I'm actually going to go and get those things. I'm going to talk to those thought partners. I'm going to, find that validation and reminders that I'm not alone. And it's so true. Like you just said beautifully, this is what all people need, especially students. This pandemic taught all of us that the value of community, the value of connection, the value of not feeling alone in anything, in our struggles, in our joy, in our peace, in our worries, and in whatever it is. So I just think it's what a beautiful way for you to start coping with this newfound anxiety.
Yeah. I always say, like, to people, like, and I've been saying to reminding myself too, it's like the bravest thing, the most courageous thing that you can do is ask for help.
Mm-hmm. I love it. So you mentioned that this is community. That's been one of your biggest coping strategies this year, and that a lot of your old ones weren't really too much of a success for you. Have there been any others though since finding community, or how has community, would you say, fully impacted you or changed your life or relationship to your anxiety?
Well, I think that it has normalized anxiety for me, having the community to be like, oh my goodness, you know, like I was feeling the same way, or like, you know, talking to somebody and them just being like, I am just like, I can't think right now. Oh, really? I can't think either right now. What is it? You know, what's going on with you? I just think like it really normalizes it, because although we know that it is normal to have anxiety, sometimes there really still is a stigma of talking about it and being vulnerable enough to talk about it. And I think the other piece is like, just again, like asking for help from people and like being able to open yourself up like that. So I think it's validated it. Some of the other strategies that I've also been using, I've been doing a lot of positive reframing. And I've been noticing that that has been a big help as well. Like I like to say, like all the bright lights that have happened throughout this year. You know, like I was able to find, you know, I learned a lot of technology. Another bright light is like I was able to have closer relationships with children because they were able to send me things through Seesaw and like video conferences. like another bright light happened to be that like I gained these close friendships with people that were so far away and got to actually like go through walkthroughs in their school and see what their schools look like, and actually get some really good information about what was maybe coming up on how they problem solve certain things. So that was a lot of positive reframing. And I have to tell you, the self-compassion thing mentioned before, that is what a lot of my mindfulness practice was around, was about self-compassion, self-love, and just being okay with where we are right now. And also with being able to accept the unknown.
Yeah.
You know, that things weren't going to have a closure all of the time. And that we can kind of ride these waves and still be okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Oof. I just got a chill.
That one's a hard one. The unknown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing that that I'm hearing in this, like the unknown is the one that sticks out. It's like, accepting not knowing and not having closure. Like that is a challenge, right? Like that's an active practice. But the other thing is, it sounds like because of community and because you could relate to all of these people, realizing like, oh, it's not just me that can't focus. Oh, it's not just me with the racing thoughts. Oh, it's not that. In some ways that maybe was like giving you permission to practice more self-compassion, and maybe permission is the wrong word, but it allowed you to feel more self-compassion because you knew there was nothing wrong with you. You knew that it wasn't just you that couldn't focus. Like this was like a collective experience.
Yeah, I would agree. And actually, Abby, the word permission is actually the word that actually comes through. I mean, you know that I am a huge proponent of Dr. Mark Brackett's Permission to Feel. And it really is about giving yourself the permission to feel these feelings fully, and to know that, like, it's okay. And it's not going to last forever, but it's okay. And sometimes you have to just give yourself permission and say, I give myself permission to feel anxious right now. I give myself permission to feel joy right now. I give myself permission to, like,
Eat
take
the
a
cookie.
break. Yeah, and eat the cookie. Eat all the cookies.
Exactly. Sorry, you had too long of a pause. I was like, in my head, I'm like, eat the cookie, eat the cookie. I have to say it.
I love it.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's important that we give ourselves permission for all of that stuff, the good and the bad. And the only way we're going to be able to get to the other side of that wave or that problem or whatever it is by moving through it. Right. And I think sometimes Abby and I on the pod have talked a lot about name it to tame it. And the only way we're going to get to the other side is by calling it out. Right. And I think it's beautiful that you've been able to say, this is anxiety and I have it and that's okay. And you've been able to have that reflected back to you from the amazing community that you have supporting, which is amazing. So what advice would you give your younger, or should I say beginning of the school year self? If you could like rewind back to say August, or the date in which you learned, the date that triggered you once you learned it's back to in-person learning during a global pandemic, what kind of advice would you give yourself?
The advice is ride the wave. It's going to work out, and let go of expectations. Embrace the newness. And just be kind to yourself.
Yes. Love it. Those
And
are
eat
beautiful.
the cookies.
That's a lot. Yeah, we always have to end. That's the period. Eat the cookies, Reyna.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Perfect. So would you say that your relationship to your anxiety is solid? Do you feel like I've got this? What's it like?
I think that it depends day by day, and like everybody has a window of tolerance, right? And I think it all depends on what's happening during that day that's kind of gonna exhaust you. So like if I get a good night's sleep and I'm eating well and I got all my stuff done, there's a greater chance that I have a better relationship with the anxious feelings that may come up. When I'm feeling tired and overworked and, the day was just not going my way, I probably am going to have a harder time recognizing it and really being able to manage it. So, I think that the word would be awareness. I think I have a better awareness of the anxiety now.
Yeah.
So, our final question before we get into a lightning round of fun, get to know Reyna.
Oh boy, now I'm really sweating. Go ahead.
I'm starting to sweat myself. Not sure why, just cause.
Anger breath.
Yes. Grab a somatic hold, everybody. Hands to heart and belly. Self hugs. What is being an anxiety warrior now that you are one like us? What does being an anxiety warrior mean to you?
I was thinking about this and I'm still not 100% sure. I'm still not 100% sure because, like, a warrior in my mind is that you are, it's like you're attacking it. And in my mindset. But I'm thinking, like, I'm really not like, and fierce. Like, there's a fierceness to it. And I don't really want to be fierce about it. I want to sit with it. I want to walk with it. So it's not so much like an anxiety warrior for me. It's more of like a kinship. Like, it's part of my community. So I kind of want to welcome it in. Because the more I welcome it in, I think the friendlier it will be with me. So I think that's what it means to me to be an anxiety warrior. It's more of the fact of, like, opening up the community that you live with, having it sit with you, walking with it, and just, like, fully accepting it.
It's beautiful. What's really interesting in what you just said, especially about the definition of warrior, is in our previous podcast, we actually talk about language and how I might use the word relationship and Margot hears it one way when I'm meaning it in a different way. And how Margot was one time teaching about love and how her students heard it one way when she was meaning it more of a universal love way. And so I think it's so just fascinating how we use the same words, but we're not always meaning the same definitions, right? And so when you hear warrior, you think like going to battle.
Fighting.
Fighting. And so I just love when language comes up, because like when I hear warrior, I don't necessarily hear fighting. I hear like bravery, right? Like it's an act of bravery to be a part of a community and show yourself. Right. And so I just thought that was really, especially because just last week we were talking about how words mean so many different things, even though we think we're all speaking a common language.
Yeah. So interesting. And it's very interesting because I know, with some of the groups that I'm in, we do have like grounding documents and grounding definitions that have been co-created. So that way everybody does have a common understanding and a common language when we do talk about what certain words mean. So, and I appreciate that, Abby, because that was like a great opportunity and like another example of how when you're in community, you get to hear different perspectives and how like when you hear different things, it can actually change your thinking. So I'm gonna sit with that and just reflect on how what you said might change how I think.
Seed is planted.
Look at that. Yeah. And maybe it grows and maybe it doesn't. Right. And that's what's cool about it too. It's that like when you coming from a place of non-judgment and just kind of like, oh, that's so interesting that you heard it that way, right? And I mean, Abby and I talked about this at length in our first episode together, which is what does an anxiety warrior mean to us, which is why it's one of the questions that we plan to ask every guest. And I love that. I think it's actually really dope that you completely like flipped it on its face, right? And you had a completely different concept of, well, no, actually, I don't really consider myself a warrior because this is what the word warrior means to me. Right. And so I fall in the camp of Abby a little bit, which is I see it as a real strength. I see myself as a warrior, and it's less about me fighting with myself and more about me just being a fighter, me being tough, me being strong, me being capable. And those are things that as an anxious, insecure kid turned person that I need to keep reminding myself of and reframing for myself. So yeah, I think it's so awesome that the way we can all hear language in such unique ways. All right. Woohoo! We made it to lightning.
Woo!
My favorite round. Abby, do you want to start?
Yeah. So we'll like go back and forth. And we shared this with our last guest too. Like you can think, even though it's lightning round, you don't have to impulsively answer. Like if you have your go-to answer, awesome. But you can pause and think. Like sometimes we feel like lightning round means pressure to answer quickly.
Okay.
So, yeah. Yeah. All right. So am I going first?
Yeah, girl, let's do it.
Okay. Let's see. So if you could be any animal, what would you be and why?
Oh my God, it's so funny that you just asked this. One of my kids is just literally asked me, do you want to know what your spirit animal was? A 9-year-old. So I was like, tell me. And she's like, a narwhal is a Sagittarius. Like she goes in and she's telling me how it's the unicorn of the sea. So we actually turned that into our welcoming question just today of like, what animal best represents you? And I said unicorn.
Woo!
I did.
And why?
Okay, because it's like imaginative and colorful and sparkly and just like, the munchkins really do exist in the land of Oz. Like that's me.
Yes, girl. I love it. My horn can pierce the sky. Sorry, that's this joke. Bringing it back to the office for any other office fans out there listening. Unicorn. That's what we're going to start calling you now, Reyna. Princess Unicorn. Okay. Are you ready?
Ready.
What would you name your yacht if you had one? I'm assuming you don't have one, by the way.
No, I definitely don't have it.
Future Reyna has a yacht. What are you naming it?
Oh my goodness.
Well, we know you have lots of kayaks, right? Do any of those have a name?
No, they don't.
Oh.
What would I name my yacht?
Unicorn?
Maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'd go with the Over the Rainbow. I don't know. Yeah, that could be possible. Over the Rainbow.
I like that.
Yeah, little Wizard. I'm a big Wizard of Oz fan.
Yeah,
so.
I thought you were going
Love
to say
it.
something about ruby shoes or something.
Yeah.
Ruby sneakers.
My
That's
ruby
right.
sneakers.
All right. What is one of your quirks? What is something that is unique or quirky about you? Or something you do that is quirky?
Okay. I'm going to be real vulnerable right now. So I have to practice everything before I do it. So for example, my husband Ken had bought me a bike helmet that, I needed to start wearing so that way I'd be able to bike safely on the road. So he came home and I was wearing my bike helmet while I was washing dishes because I had to practice wearing it.
Oh my.
That's just one example that I'm sharing with you.
I like it.
So something quirky about me is that I have to practice things before I do it. And sometimes my friends will come over and they'll be like, practicing? I'll be like, yes.
Yeah. Oh, see? Yes. I'm sorry. So really, I have to ask a follow-up. Do you think that the helmet was going to surprise you once you were on the bike? That its
Well, it's
function might
like,
be different or something?
oh goodness.
I'm just teasing.
No, I just needed to know what it was going to feel like sitting on my head and like where my peripheral vision was going to be. Is like,
Okay, fair
how to
enough.
practice.
That makes see now you've reframed it for me. It makes sense now.
Yeah.
No, I'd be worried about my peripheral vision too. I mean, I think bikes are
Yes.
evil, so I would never ride one. But anyway, okay. So my question's similar to Abby's actually, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What's the most useless talent you have?
Ooh. The most useless talent that I have is that I can make soda explode. I joke with my. I learned
More
it in
follow-up questions.
Mentos. I'll just leave it at that. Mentos.
Oh, yeah, the fun experiment.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. All right. Is this my last one? This is my last one.
Yeah.
Okay. Sing us one line from your go-to song that you sing in the shower or in the car.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it can be more than one line.
Yeah, it could be
At least
more.
one
Yeah.
line.
You're gonna make
I don't
me
want
do
to.
this.
I don't want to limit you just to one line.
All right, hold on. Look at this stuff. Isn't it neat? Wouldn't you think my collection's complete? Wouldn't you think I'm a girl who has everything?
Look at this trove, treasures untold. How many wonders can one cavern hold? That's the best song ever.
I'm very impressed.
Thank you.
Yes, so many twinkles. We have lots of Disney love.
Yeah,
right
love
now.
Disney. Oh,
Yes. And we're glad those, okay, you may not be office nerds like we are, but at least we all can share Disney because we all have that. Okay, final
karaoke.
question. Final question. Would you rather have to eat the same thing every day for the rest of your life or never eat the same thing twice?
Well, if the same thing that I ate every day was like an appetizer sampler, then it really wouldn't be the same thing every day because I could kind of pick and choose what I wanted off of there. But I probably would prefer eating something different every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Nice.
Follow-up question.
yeah.
Can she eat the same things in the one day?
Ooh.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, unlike that one day.
Yeah, you got
May
that one day.
17th, if she
Yep.
just is like, I love sesame chicken,
Mhm.
you could eat that for all of the meals.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, there's just too many cookies out there in the world just to be left with just one.
I'm with you.
That's true.
I'm with you. All right. We made it through. See, that wasn't so bad. We got you to sing. That was awesome. All right, Reyna. So every week, Abby and I share, we go back and forth, or when we have a guest, we ask one of us or that guest to share a win of the week. It doesn't have to be anything big or monumental. It could be the tiniest little thing. So we'd love to hear yours. Anything great happened this week that you'd consider to be a win?
Yes. I got back in my kayak after 2 years of being in quarantine. To be on the Hudson River again was
Amazing.
such joy. And that was a huge win.
Yeah. Yay. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy for you. I'm sure that must have felt so good.
It did. It did.
Well, Reyna, you are a superstar. Thank you so much for being with us on the Anxiety Warriors podcast. We are so grateful for you and all the important work you're doing as an educator. And we love you.
And I love you guys too. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So I really enjoyed this conversation with Reyna. What were some of your takeaways?
Yeah, it was really super fun. She's so smart. Reyna is just such a smarty.
Yeah.
I really loved the section about spending time in community and how deeply she valued being in community. And the fact that she wasn't able to really use any of her familiar coping strategies, of which she has many from being a teacher for so long and working in yoga and mindfulness field and being specifically a social emotional learning teacher, that she didn't really necessarily think, right? Or she kind of mentioned like a lot of us don't really think to go to other people when we're experiencing big and somewhat unfamiliar for Reyna emotions like anxiety. And so I think it was just so cool that she was able to find so much love and support through community. And I loved the thought partners and just how people from all over the world too, she was able to connect with that do what she does and help to validate her experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I was really glad that you clarified what thought partners meant, because I made up my own definition when she said it, and then hearing hers, I was like, oh, this is powerful.
Yeah, right. And so when we had our chat about it before the podcast, I was like, this is something I really want to talk about because I think it could be valuable for all the warriors out there.
Right. Right. And in that vein of what you're saying about community, I really liked the part. There's two parts. One part is how she says, like, it's okay to ask for help. And I think that is just something that is really challenging for a lot of people. You know, the mentality is like, I need to pull myself up by my bootstraps, or, you know,
figure it out on my own.
Yeah, I need to pretend I have it all together, even when I don't. And I just like really see so much value in being able to, one, have the awareness of how you're feeling and that you're not doing well, that you need support, and then asking for that help.
Yeah. I also really, really resonated with her whole bright lights reframe. And just the phrase bright lights, right? It just, for some reason, it makes me shine. It makes me want to smile. And I think that this was a really, really, it seemed to be a really, really helpful strategy for Reyna to be able to think about what were the bright lights of my day, my week, this whole year, right? Like learning more about tech, learning how to support students and each other from afar. So I love that part. That's something I feel like I want to do more of in my day, in my life, is find some more bright lights.
Right. I mean, we're so conditioned, like the negativity bias is to look for the what's wrong to protect us, right? Ultimately, that's coming from a place of our nervous systems wanting to protect us. And it's an act of strength to really focus on, okay, what are the bright lights in the day, in the month, in the year? And it's not like toxic positivity. It's not pretending things are okay when they're not.
Right.
But it's being able to see what was the good, what was that bright light. So that was a really powerful moment for me too, when she was sharing that.
Yeah, totally. And I also just think it's just the way she talked about self-compassion being a new practice for her, right? Not that it was never there, I'm sure, but this is one that we keep coming back to this nearly every week on the podcast, in our conversation with Lauren Buckles, and in our conversations, just the two of us. And again, today with Reyna, is just being able to be really, really compassionate with ourselves and be more accepting of all feelings.
Right. Right. And that's, that I feel like ties into everything that she was saying, is this being accepting of the feelings and being able to companion them, and also in the like permission to ask for help when you need it. I think about like how as kids, we're so often told like our feelings aren't valid, or we're told like you can't be with the group unless you act like the group. Like if someone is sad or someone is angry, like we would get pulled out of the group in school. Right. So we're being constantly told that unless we act like everything's okay, we're not welcome to the group. We're not welcome to our community. We're shunned. We're ostracized. Right.
Yeah.
One, feelings are valid. I can express them. I'm not going to be ostracized by my group. And I can also be aware of them and accept them as part of my human experience, for showing my self-compassion. I just felt like was such a important component of what she was sharing too.
Yeah. I mean, what you were kind of just saying about what we were taught as kids, or what, we see happening to kids. When you were saying that, it just triggered me thinking of how often I hear folks telling kids, you're fine.
Yeah.
when they're crying or when they fell and hurt themselves or when they're experiencing probably something that's making the grown-up uncomfortable, which is a normal reaction, right? And let's validate that as well, that for grown-ups, those who are practicing and those who aren't, it can be uncomfortable to deal and be witness to someone's big emotions.
Right.
And so being told you're fine when you're not fine, right? And so like the idea of, well, if we're not going to, if we shouldn't say that to kids, we shouldn't say that to ourselves either.
Right.
You're
Right.
fine. Get over it.
Yeah. No,
Those are unhelpful sentiments.
feelings matter.
Yes, ma'am, they do. All right. Well, this was such a fun conversation. I cannot wait for you all to tune in next week. Thank you for being with us here this week and every week, Warriors. We love you so, so much. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear your wins of the week. We want to hear if some of these strategies and things you're listening to us and our guests share on the pod are helpful or working for you or your family or your students in some small way. Please feel free to reach out to us at anxietywarriorspodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at Anxiety Warriors Podcast. We'd love to have you be part of our fam. If you are interested in being a guest on the pod, we'd love to hear that too. So we hope to hear from you and hopefully get some more 5-star reviews on the board.
Smash them.
Smash that 5-star review. We have 15 5-star reviews, and this might feel like a small number to many folks, but we are very excited about it. All 15 of these people mean the world to us. They took a moment out of their precious time and told us how they were enjoying the pod, and it means the world. And so if you feel compelled, please leave us a little review, smash that 5-star button. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you all so much for joining us on this journey.
Yes. Till next time, Warriors. We love you.